In order to realize the dream of owning a truck as soon as possible, the Pakistani car owner bought an accident car and spent only 100,000 rupees for a simple repair. Then the truck can be driven on the road again. The self-help car in front of the rear-end collision is the protagonist that the owner spent 500,000 rupees to buy. Not only the driving of the entire truck was seriously damaged, but the entire chassis beam was also seriously deformed. Although it looks shabby now, after the next operation of the repair shop master, it will become a brand new second-hand car. In order to fully refurbish the chassis of the entire vehicle, the masters first have to disassemble the truck. With the assistance of their crane, the compartment and the engine are also disassembled very quickly. At this time, the beam that has been successfully disassembled by the masters has a large amount of sleeve agent on the entire inside. The beam is polished once. The strength of the beam can no longer meet the use requirements. In order to make the load-bearing capacity of the chassis stronger, we have to use these thickened steel plates for reinforcement. In order to make the steel plate and the beam fit perfectly, some steel plates need to be cut to the same width. The main purpose is to facilitate bending with a bending machine. Since the appearance of the beam is consistent with the channel steel, it is necessary to measure and mark with a tape measure before that. In this way, the two ends of the steel plate can be aligned. The steel plate can be bent horizontally to 90 degrees. The reinforced steel plate is very thick. As for the bending machine, it is also necessary to press down 3 times repeatedly. The bending angle does not meet the requirements of the embedded. Then align the marks on the other side. Bend the same angle of the slot. With the meticulous division of labor and cooperation of many masters, the flat steel plate has been processed into a beam. However, their bending machine can only process a fixed length. Fortunately, the steel plate in sections does not affect the reinforcement of the beam. In order to combine the steel plates that have just been bent, the master also needs to weld the steel plates bent in batches. In this way, the length of the original beam can be reached. Since the splicing strength of the plane is not high, the masters also chose the B-type mouth for docking. In this way, the steel plate can bear better force. Then, the original beam that has been rusted is scraped and coated with anti-rust machine to prevent the contact surface of the two insides from rusting. The data of the newly bent steel plate is completely fitted. The superposition of the two still needs to rely on their furniture. Apply pressure and use a hammer to continuously hit. In this way, the new steel plate can wrap the original beam. After the master swings the hammer 100 times, the two beams have been reinforced. Because the new steel plate is wrapped in the outer layer, the original holes are covered. It is necessary to use an electric drill to re-drill the beam to facilitate the subsequent installation of the chassis parts. After the holes on the side are drilled, the holes on the surface can be directly compared with the original holes. The drilling speed on the reverse side is not slow at all. After the master drilled for half an hour, the chassis assembly of these two reinforced beams can be restarted. In order to confirm the interval between the two beams, the cross beams must be fixed with welding rods to prevent the subsequent cross beam installation from stretching the beams. After confirming that the two beams are completely level, now it can be done. The original cross beams have been rusted through. Therefore, the repair shop used steel plates to rebuild it. Not only did it increase the number of chassis cross beams, but the thickness of the beams was also improved. The masters skillfully fixed the position of the cross beams and the holes opened in the back. The holes opened in front need to be fixed with anchors. After Yang Yikan heated the anchor head to red, he could knock it completely flat with a valve head. After the entire chassis was completely integrated, it needed to be turned over after the bottom anchor was fixed. It also needed to use their crane to move it again. Then the front axle assembly of the original car was fixed. Although the original car was seriously deformed during driving, the front axle was not hit. After the front axle was fixed by pins and cranes. In order to facilitate the fixing of the balance shaft on the chassis, master had to rely on the power of steel pipes and wire ropes to completely lift the balance shaft. Although they did not have tools such as hoists and iron chains, the overall installation was also not difficult. After the axle seat and the beam were fixed with bolts, the heavy leaf spring needed to be installed on the axle bone. The leaf spring was locked and fixed with bolts. When the rear axle assembly was renovated by the repair shop, the leaf spring needed to be clamped. The entire chassis that had been successfully repaired was fixed to the chassis beam by the engine feet. Because the cab could not be repaired, the owner could only replace the cab that had been repaired in the accident. After the master's skilled debugging, the truck could be tested on the road. So this accident truck was simply repaired. What do you think of the Pakistani master's skills?